Hey everybody, welcome to Ellis Mowers. I appreciate y'all watching as always. This is the first video I filmed in 2022, so I hope everybody had a happy new year. I hope y'all have enjoyed all the content that I've done so far and coming up. I wanted to get this video out because I had somebody send me a carburetor kit company for me to try out on one of my projects that was forthcoming up. I gave an option of 4 different items they could send, and they decided to send me a carburetor kit for a Homelite ST-275 weed eater. This is one of the older Homelite versions, made in the USA, and with the Walbur carburetor on it. It's been sitting up for a while. It is complete, but the company that sent me this, we're gonna put the carburetor on today and see if we can get this thing running, is HIPA. They are one of the main carburetor sellers on Amazon, and they are comparably priced. Their product packaging, as you can tell, is pretty good. A lot of times you get stuff from Amazon and from foreign countries, and they're just coming in a random clear bag, just in a package. They sent this to me in a box, and then it comes in a box, so your packaging is better as it upon first glance. I think this particular product was about $17 or $18. I'll have links in the description to HIPA's website, HIPA360.com, as well as a link to this carburetor on the description of this video down below if you're looking to fix it. They have all kinds of carburetors for all kinds of small engines. They're the big dog in this. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll unbox this and then we'll get this fixed, hopefully. I know that it runs on 2-cycle when you pour it down the carb throat, and hopefully this carburetor is enough to get it back going, pending if I have enough compression in the engine, which I should since it ran. Let's go ahead and unbox this, fix this weed eater, and hopefully you have a success story with this HIPA carburetor. We will find out. Let's get started. And real quickly before I get started, if you have any questions about the video, you can reach out to me, Ellis at ellismowers.com, as well as on Instagram and Facebook at ellismowers09. All that's in the description below as well. If you're looking for a quick step-by-step how-to video to do this, this is probably not the place. I try and be honest and upfront. I don't want to waste your time. This is more of a narrative form. I try and show the entire process raw and unedited. That's just kind of my style of videos. There's a bunch more videos out there that just do a really quick step-by-step process. So if you want more of a narrative form throughout the process and everything that I did, this kind of is the video for you. Without further ado, let's give a first look at this ST-275 and see how to get this thing taken off so that we can put this HIPA carburetor on. Alright guys, like I said, we're going to go ahead and do the unboxing here before we get started on this weed eater. Again, this fits a bunch of Homelite string trimmers. Again, these are the ones that are USA made and are fairly new. Are fairly old. I don't even know the vintage of that one, but I do know that it was made in Charlotte, North Carolina. Again, like I said, the packaging in this is pretty good. A lot of times you don't even get a box at all. You just get a little plastic sleeve. Well, fixing machines can be easier is their mantra, and their website is HIPA360.com. This is I don't know if that barcode and that X number is anything, but if you go on their website and just type Homelite ST-275 string trimmer, it should come in right for you. So this comes in the whole kit. Super nice box. I mean, look, it's even got a separate provision for your air filters and fuel lines and such, and even got a carb tool with it. Look at that. So we can adjust it and all that good stuff. So this is super nice. Here's your gaskets. Sometimes they give you a couple of extra gaskets depending on what type of trimmer you have. You may have to use a different gasket. Looks like this one is going to use, let's see, so it's going to go in the machine like this. I think it goes downward, although it may go backwards this time. We will find out when we put it in the machine. But you got different gaskets and whatnot. Let's see what else comes in this kit. You've got, shoot, we'll go ahead and put the spark plug and all that good stuff in. Save your spark plug. Again, we're talking about Chinese brands. Spark plug honestly doesn't look bad. I've seen cheaper. Fuel filters. They have the same size nipple on them. It kind of looks like it. Let me take this out and see. Yeah, so you have 2 fuel filters. Again, they just give you kind of an array of stuff with this, because I bet their cost for things like, you know, styrofoam isn't much. So these are the air filters. It's just a little small air filters. And your adjustment tool, your 2 primer bulbs, and fuel line to your heart's content. Plenty of fuel line here for your inlet and return lines. All in all, probably the best packaging job I have seen for a Chinese carburetor. Again, this is a few dollars more than what I usually pay, but they sent this to me and we're going to put it on. Probably a little bit better quality too. This does look like it's a little bit better made than some of the other 2-cycle stuff that I've seen. Again, I've gotten some of these carbs for like as little as $6 before, so I've had pretty good luck with them. I had a chainsaw that came from China. Again, it wasn't a HIPA brand. I don't think I've had a HIPA carburetor before. But overall, the packaging, thumbs up, HIPA. Good job. Let me get this bench cleaned off. I'll get the weed eater on here, and we'll go ahead and take everything off, and we'll put this on to see if we can get it to run. All right, let's get into it. Air filter just pops off with 2 tabs. You just have to lift up on the top and lift up on the bottom. The bottom is a little trickier because of getting it. There we go. It's not quite as good access. So air filter covers off. This air filter, just, you can see that this probably hasn't been sitting in a bad area for a long time, because this air filter is actually pretty porous and it's not necessarily falling apart. Again, it's literally just a sponge, so we're going to replace the air filter as well. In terms of this coming off, it looks like you just need a 10 millimeter on a 1/4 inch ratchet. It actually may be a 7/16 or a 3/8. 10 millimeter will work though. And there's 2 nuts on the inside here that we're going to take care of. That's what I'm about to do. Again, the fuel linkage and stuff has already been, or the fuel lines are just completely rotted out of it. So you just have to pull the fuel lines if you are doing this and the fuel lines aren't rotted out. Not an issue for me. We do need to get them out of the gas tank and out of this little service, or this little area here on the gas tank. Not really the focus of the video here. The focus is to just get these on. Alright, so get this carb on. Alright, the nuts are off. I'm going to see if I can pull this off here. I want to say that there's, so there is a screw on the back side of this mechanism. As long as we can get the carb off, we won't have to worry about it. There's a screw for the ground wire right there. And all that does is, seriously, it just butts right up to the frame. So as long as you have a good contact, you're always going to have a good ground to get it off. Alright, so the throttle cable, I think we can just pull the carburetor off. We can. And we just pull the throttle cable off like that. This carb is off. I mean, that's one of the easiest carbs. You can see this has been sitting up for a little while, or hasn't been used because the primer bulb is just completely rotted. taking a look at this Marlboro carburetor before I chuck it. Probably the original carburetor that came on this device or machine. And it's interesting because it actually has a plastic inlet for the primer bulb and then a rubber elbow as an outlet port. So you can see like the old varnish and stuff. So like this would not, a lot of people are like, why don't you just rebuild carbs? Mostly because this is maybe a $60 to $75 machine, and I don't want to take the time to rebuild something that's honestly that insignificant. That gasket actually on the back side looks pretty good. I may not need it anyways. I don't think this comes with what you would need. So we're going to leave that on the back. Truthfully, we could probably, while I'm here, I'm going to grab a little something to just poke these fuel lines through, these old rotted fuel lines. We'll get them out of the gas tank at a later time. So fuel lines are poked through. As far as I can tell, there's no cracked fuel tank or anything of that nature. Again, the mantra here is just to see if this carburetor will allow this weed eater to run. So you have a bunch of different areas to put the throttle in. I don't remember which one it was on. I think it was on one of the top ones. But if y'all remember, this did go in reverse. However, this one actually, let's take a look. This one actually might go, okay, so this carburetor is a little bit different. So the mounting points on the old carburetor are where the primer bulb was on the bottom. And this one is actually where the primer bulb was on the top, which is kind of nice. A little more user-friendly. Hopefully this should, yeah, it'll work just fine. It even fits up with the choke and all that stuff. So that's good. I'm going to pop this in, the throttle cable, maybe right in the second. Do I need to put it in the top, or do I need to put it right there? I don't know which one I need to put it in, but we're going to put it in one and see if it works. Let's see. So it needs to go into one of the top holes. I think it goes into that one. We just got to get it to where it will get around. So you have to pull the throttle cable out, get it around that, and then we're going to put it, maybe it goes in the very top. We're going to find out here in just a second. Learn with me, guys. Learn with me, right? Yeah, I think it goes in the very top because I'm having an issue with it. So you're going to need to push it out, feed it in the top hole there. There we go. Now we're going to push it in there. I think we got it now, guys. Let's see. Come on, buddy. Oh, can't get it. No, it's got to go in one of the further down holes because it will not reach the top, unfortunately. So I think they put that many holes in there depending on what device you have or what weed eater you have. Yeah, that's it. So that third hole works just fine. So we've got it in, which is good. Part of me wants to go ahead and put this back on. I need to put the gasket on first though, remember. So the gasket, let's look at the old carburetor, see what type of gasket was on it. It's not one on it actually. So I don't know if like the plastic or something makes it work just fine. Again, this is a choke. This gasket will work. This is a choke deal. So I don't think that the gasket is necessarily that important. because there's no like primer port, because the primer goes directly into the carburetor. Would be my guess. We're gonna put that gasket on for good measure. However, I think we'll have, oh, we got tons of room. These old Homelites are nice and easy to work on. So we got tons of room. We'll go ahead and put these nuts back on the inside here, and we'll move on to the fuel lines next after I do this. But again, guys, look at how easy this was to install. The biggest difference is that the primer that looks like this HIPA carburetor, the primer bulb goes on the top instead of the bottom. So you just have to kind of be mindful of that. And we're going to get this tightened up here. To, you know, one ugga-dugga, or whatever you call it. You don't get it too tight, just get it snug. Make sure it stays on. Choke. Choke's working great. You can check right here. Choke on, choke off. Super easy to use. It's a nice little ergonomic switch there. Throttle is ready to rock and roll. And it is idling. This is going down as far as it needs to. So that's doing, you're checking for throttle travel. So you may have a different, all these different holes here. You may, depending on your device, may need to put it in a different hole. I just guessed and checked. Or if you're smart, you'll look and see what hole it is in before you take the other carburetor off. I like doing things the hard way though. So as you can see, I've got it starts right here on this throttle screw. It stops where it needs to on the low throttle, and then on the high throttle, it is stopping at the stop screw. You can adjust this throttle screw to whatever you need to in order for you to get it to work. All right, so now let me figure out, we're going to see which side sucks and which side blows. So this side sucks. This side sucks. Right here. So, and I just test it by pushing the primer bulb, creating a seal, and you can feel it kind of, like a psh whenever you as long as you have it sealed with your finger. You can hear it whenever you let off of it after you prime it a few times. So this sucks in. That means this line we're going to put into a fuel filter. This line is like the return line back to the tank to complete the system. That's what we're going to do next. Off camera, I am going to clean this tank out and get all the old residue and stuff out. That way it doesn't get sucked into this new carburetor and gum things up. As long as I do all that right, we should have, and as long as this thing's got good compression. I mean, the carburetor, we know that's going to work. HIPA wouldn't sell millions of these if they didn't work. Reviews are pretty good on Amazon too, I think. But before we do that, since I've got it, let's see. This is a little bit of a different plug, but again, a lot of these kits are universal. So let me get curious to see if this plug's going to work in here. This may not be the right plug that goes into this trimmer anyways. Because it doesn't really seal around very well. You can see the plug was actually burning all right. That was in it. I know that it worked. But let's see. This is probably a better, I don't know if a better plug, this is probably the correct plug to go in it. Because this one didn't have a big collar on it, and this is a Champion DJ7Y. Good plug, not sure if it's the right one to go in this. We're gonna put this one in, we'll see if it runs with this one. If not, I'll let y'all know. Y'all find out for yourself. Boom. All right, let me clean that tank out. We'll get the fuel lines installed next. All right, guys, hopefully that camera focuses, but there's a comparison. The black line is the old fuel line. It's rotted out and all that mess. But this is the new fuel line. As you can see, width and diameter and all that stuff is the same. So they bring you the right fuel line. It's not a, I couldn't tell you what the fuel line size is, but it's the right one. A lot of times what I do when I do these is I'll take the angle cutters here and I'll cut a nice little, like, angle on these things. What happens is you're able to get this into the tank a lot easier this way. And I did clean the tank. I kind of switched around some new gas in it just to kind of get it clean. And you just literally, you just shove this mess in and it'll eventually go. So the big transition point is right where it ends. So you kind of have to be careful and figure out how to exactly get it in there perfectly. Sometimes I just cut it to a big enough angle to where I can just pull a bunch of it through and then grab it with the pliers. Once you get it in there, you're good to go. Do that a little bit more. Hopefully that'll help some. You gotta do this twice. But if you sit there and you're trying to put this end into this tank just like that, you're gonna spend all day, say some words that you don't want to say, throw some things you don't want to throw. So now I usually get some angle pliers. You can even attempt to put maybe some WD-40 or something on it. But as long as you can get it started and going in there, then you're good to go. So like this, I think I got it. It is a little bit of a slow process, especially on this tank, because the fuel lines are on the complete opposite side of where you are going to be putting your what gas cap is, excuse me. So I just want to see how far I've got it in. So you can see I've got it started and we're slowly getting it in. And the reason why this is so difficult is because you need to have it tight. That way if you like turn the weed eater sideways, turn it upside down, turn it whichever way you want to, it's not going to leak gas out. Sometimes I'll turn these at like a 90-degree angle to try and push them in. Sometimes that'll work. Just kind of depends. As long as you can get it started, you can usually keep it going. I might even spray just a tiny bit of lubricant on here. See if I can get it to go a little bit better. But that's the gist of it. You just try and get it to where it'll slide in there. Oh, I think that's working a little bit better now. Either that or my pliers are slipping, one of the two. I think we're getting it in there. But it's a little bit of a slow process. Just have a little bit of patience. Let's see where we're at. I'm not going to burn up a lot of time in this video doing this, but that's all that you got to do. You just kind of have to work it through there. Some other tools I use, or like a little fishing hook tool. I sometimes will try and hook it Worst case, I break some fuel line and I just have to, once I get it to where I can pull the line, I just pull out the bad portion of the line and just cut it off. They give you a bunch of extra fuel line in this HIPA carburetor, so just whatever you can do to kind of get it down in there to where you can fish it out. And this one's going slow, but where you can fish it out with like some pliers or something. Like I said, this weed eater is a little bit more difficult to do, but I'm going to get it to that point. And once I get it to that point, I'll show you what I do next. Alright guys, I don't know how well you can see in there, but we're about the point where we're going to fish this wire, this fuel line. Of course, when I put the fuel line in, it decided it wanted to go the opposite way that I needed to. It's going toward the back of the tank. So I am taking some mechanics wire and I put a little hook on it. You can see that right there. So I grabbed it and hooked. You see I still got a little bit of varnish in the tank too. There's really no great way to get it all out, but I think I got most of it out. So we've got it, there we go. So we pulled just a little hook on the wire, and we got that to the point where I can take these pliers right here, I think, and get down there, or at the very least make it easier to fish it out. Now I got it, there we go. So we're going to take it and we're just going to pull this line, and once you get it started, like I said, it's a little bit easier. We're just going to pull this line out just like that. Ooh, it's going to retract some because it's got elasticity to it. Your vocabulary word of the day. So there. So I think our last point to where we punctured it with my little hook tool was about right there, so we're going to cut it off about right there. We may need to pull a little bit of angle on it. Let me see. Let's see what we got. We got a ton of line. I don't want to mess anything up. I did have a little nick. It's kind of... just for the heck of it, we'll cut it off right here, because I don't know if I nicked it right there or not. Okay, so now you can take one of these fuel filters that they gave us, and you can just pop her right on to that. Now what we can do, I know that sun's killer, guys, I'm sorry. We're just gonna pull it back on the other side here and slide the fuel filter back into the bottom of the tank right there. I think that's probably good. We're going to come over to this side, and we're just going to cut off a little bit of extra. It's not bad to have a little bit of extra to play with here. And we're going to take the fuel filter side and put it where this thing sucks in, just like that. So it'll suck the fuel through the primer bulb. Primer bulb will push it into the carburetor, I believe. That's the way it'll work. Some of them are like the primer bulbs after, where you push it into the carb. I'm not sure. Yeah. So we actually can take the remainder of this piece of line. This is an easy line to do because you don't have to put a fuel filter on it. You just have to stick it into the tank. It's just a return line. It's so that I guess whenever you're priming, it kind of completes the fuel circuit, so to speak. Any excess gas that you don't use gets put back into the tank. You should have enough line We should have enough room to do it after you put the air filter on it. If not, you can take the air filter back off. Once you get it started, you're usually good to go. Of course, I'm having an issue getting it started. There we go. Let me just get it in there just a little bit, just enough so that it's not going to come out on us and to where it is sealed. Some of these have like a little plastic piece that you put and you kind of suck it in just like you do a or stick it out just like you do a fuel filter, and then you pull it back up. This one's gone. A lot of times whenever I replace stuff, I don't put that plastic piece back on just because it takes time and you don't really need it. So we're just going to push this down some, a little bit more. I was just pulling it up to make sure that I had it in there. Again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cut this off. Cut a little bit of excess. This doesn't hurt anything. Stick it onto the outside return there. We'll go ahead and put the air filter on while we're here too. Again, the oil fuel mix should oil that up a little bit. You could pre-oil it if you so desire to. Then the air filter just pops on. I guess it pops on like this. Yeah. And we'll clip it, and we'll go for broke here, guys. I'll go ahead and get it down. We'll put gas in it. We'll try priming it, and then we'll see if we can get this thing to crank up. All right, guys, got the fuel in it, got it on the ground. We'll just start priming, and as you can see, we primed about 7 or 8 times. We've got fuel going in the bottom here, or going in the inlet tube, and we got fuel going out. Let me give you a closer look. Let me prime it a little bit more here so that you can see that. You can see it going out, back into the return. So that's good. Now, let's see if this thing will just kick off here and roll on with it. Choke is to where it is perpendicular or parallel to the ground. Primer bowl we've already done. You'll hear it, you should hear it pop off and then quit. Might just need to put it in run position. And I probably flooded it, to be quite honest with you. There we go. Look at that, right out of the box. It idles really good. Maybe the carburetor could use a little bit of tuning. I think what's going on though is I got the head on this thing and I don't think it's perfectly balanced. I also think there's a little bit of drag on the head as well. I will, I'll tell you what, while y'all are here, let me crank it back up. Let me get the tool that they gave me and see if I can tweak the high side a little bit. And see if we can get this thing to run a little bit better at full tilt. That's really the only thing. It's idling good. Let's see if it'll start right back up. Running good. You can hear it. There we go. Now will it idle? Yeah, it was running a little rich out of the box, so we had to lean it out a little bit. Man, that thing sounds good. Man. Let's see if it picks up off of idle any better. I'll back it off just a little bit and see if it can pick up off of idle a little bit better. That thing right there is rocking. Cool. Might lean out the idle a little bit here on the low speed. Made it worse. Yeah, it made it worse. I need to back it off a little bit from low speed. Alright, let's try that. Alright, that low speed you gotta have just right. I shouldn't have messed with it, but they had it just right on the I guess I'll have to do a little bit more adjustments because HIPA had it right on the money from the start, and I messed it up. So let me lean it out a little bit. Yep, they had it right from the start. I should have just left it, but I'm gonna readjust it. We'll wrap this video up. I'll show you a final run of this thing, and we'll finish it out. Alright guys, I got some string in this, and I got a little weed eating to do, so I'm going to see if this thing will start back up for me. Probably needs to be adjusted a little bit because I have changed the string on it. But yeah, I think so. There we go. Again, we're dealing with an older weed eater here, and I think I just need to put some more gas in it too. Yeah, gas level's a little bit low. There's not really a provision for the fuel filter under there either, so it's not a carburetor issue. It's running out of gas because of the way I have the fuel filter placed. So I might adjust the fuel filter a little bit, but you can see we did just fine right there for that strip. And again, if you think you're gonna put one of these on and it's gonna be plug and play, especially on a trimmer this old, it's probably not going to be. So just keep that in mind. Keep a decent amount of gas in these things, and kind of get that fuel filter situated. A lot of weed eaters have an area to where the fuel filter sits, and I think this one actually needs to kind of go more towards this side of the tank. So that's where I'm going to end up putting it. I'm going to pull it up a little bit, probably kind of resituate it more toward the back side of the tank here. That way it picks up more of the fuel whenever I have it tilted over like I did. Was running good until then. I need to push it in a little bit more, but like I said, it was doing just fine until then. It's not a carb issue, it's just its fact that it's just not getting gas from the tank. So I'm going to work on that a little bit, do a little bit more testing, and we'll wrap this thing up. But overall, pretty pleased with this, by the way. Worked pretty well, worked right out of the box, just needed to tweak it a little bit. Alright guys, so we have success here. Ran it about 8 to 10 minutes or so to get it some run time. This thing right here will use a little bit of gas. It's one of these older weed eaters. You can see that I have done some work here. The one thing that I did that I mentioned to you, and it was just a fuel delivery issue, it wasn't knocking off consistently after I added some gas. And the one thing that I told y'all, to keep a little bit of extra line, the reason being is I ended up having to use that little bit of extra line to get the fuel filter further to this side of the tank, because when you're using this, you tend to tilt it to the right a little bit, or at least I do. If you don't, then you pull the line out and have the fuel filter over toward the left side. Unfortunately, on these, it doesn't look like there's any provision or indentation in the gas tank. Also, it doesn't seem like these are this isn't an incredibly powerful weed eater. I had to run it pretty much full throttle. One other thing is that I do have to run this carburetor a little bit on the rich side so that it'll actually pick up off of idle. And I don't know if I can demonstrate it, but you know, I originally had it kind of roaring like exactly where it needed to be. I had to back it off because it wouldn't pick up off of idle very well. I guess just because of the load on the engine. You're talking about a bunch of different factors here. You're talking about a weed eater that's, I don't know how old. and you know, hasn't been running a long time, and all of a sudden I'm running the mess out of it. So you got to consider that. But you got to kind of here I've got it running a little lean. So here it takes a second for it to pick up, but if I want it to run a little bit less rich, because that's where the maximum RPM comes in, but it's just not, it's running on idle great. It just takes just a second for it to pick up. And again, this is a direct drive, so I think the shaft may be a little bit worn on it too. You got to consider a bunch of factors here. So in terms of the carburetor, definitely thumbs up. Gosh, especially since HIPA just sent it to me. But I'll wrap this video up here and call it a day. Alright guys, we'll wrap this video up. Again, I just want to say thanks to HIPA. They just reached out to me on Instagram and were like, hey, we'd like to collaborate with you. Can we send you something? They gave me I gave them 4 options. It was a Husqvarna chainsaw, a couple of Craftsman weed eaters, and our Craftsman weed eater, Boland's weed eater, and the Homelite weed eater. Honestly, I thought this was the last item they were going to choose on the list, but they ended up choosing it, and I was like, oh man, this is the worst of them all. I hope it works. But as you can tell, it did. And like I said, I think you know, in terms of product quality and whatnot, I mean, everything comes from China now. But they're definitely on the higher end of what you can get, especially for the price point. Again, we're talking about, I think this carb, if you buy it, is less than $20, right around that ballpark, at least right now. Again, I'll put the link to this specific carburetor, their Amazon store, and their website in the description below if you're interested in purchasing something from them to fix one of your 2-cycle equipment items. And I'll show you the extra stuff that I did not use that you will probably end up not using as well. 2 primer bulbs, a whole bout of fuel line, and I think I have a little bit of extra fuel line too, a gasket, and a fuel filter. So that's service items in the future, I guess. This Homelite, the install was very easy. Again, from the original Walboro carb, the primer bulb is flip-flopped on this, but as y'all can see, it works just fine. I did have to do a little bit of tuning, but obviously we're working with a lot of different variables here. I'm not going to fault the company on that at all, because we're talking about a 20-plus-year-old string trimmer. We're talking about used items. I mean, it has plenty of use on it. So you're talking about the shaft being worn. You've got differences in string and whatnot as well that you put on the end of your weed eater, heads. So you got all them factors to deal with. Compression of the engine. So again, I had to tweak it a little bit to where it runs a little bit rich. However, it is a little slow to come off of idle, but I didn't want to back it off even more and just have it running like all the time. So I think I found a happy medium. I will test it out a little bit more. This thing does suck up some gas pretty good. But in terms of fuel filter placement, that's going to be kind of your big deal when it comes to being able to get enough gas to run this thing. Depends on kind of how you put up, how you tilt the weed eater to run it, because there's no provision for the fuel filter to put in that gas tank. So that's going to be kind of the wild card in there. But in terms of the functionality of the HIPA carb, which is what this video was about, it did just fine. Thumbs up. I appreciate you for HIPA for reaching out to me and sending me the carburetor. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I don't beg for that. I try for organic growth. But if you have any questions about the video, you can reach out to me on Instagram and Facebook at Ellis Mowers 09, as well as my email address, ellis@ellismowers.com. Again, thank you very much for watching. Thank you, HIPA, for sending the carburetor. Hopefully this is the start of a little bit more of a collaboration with those guys. And I will catch y'all on the next video. See you then.